Hi everyone, welcome to Menopause Chicks. My name is Shirley Weir. I'm the founder of Menopause Chicks. And tonight I'm joined by a very special guest, Tara Kane. Hi Tara.
Hi.
So good to see you.
You as well.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely.
So tonight's event, as you already know, is the Smart Woman's Guide to Cannabis. And we get a lot of questions in the Menopause Chicks community about cannabis. We get questions from the converted, and we get questions from the confused, and we get questions from the curious.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna roll through all three of those things tonight. But I just wanna say very special welcome to everyone who has been joining us for these events throughout. September is Menopause Awareness Month. If you are on Zoom, please do find the chat bubble. It's either across the bottom or the top of your screen. And you can use the chat box to post your questions or comments as we go. And if you are stumbling upon us tonight on the Facebook community, we are live on Facebook. You can also post your questions there and we will do our very best to get to you. So let's get started.
Sounds good.
Tara, I just love to hear, what do you do? And how do you answer that question in an elevator when someone asks?
So basically, what I do is I guide and counsel people on essentially the pros, the cons, all the questions like you just phrased in regards to using marijuana, be it therapeutically, medicinally, recreationally. I get lots of questions about legalities, how to approach physicians. The questions kind of go on and on, but essentially the biggest part is just the overall question about how they could potentially incorporate this into their overall quality of life.
Right. So let's paint a picture for everyone. I mean, 2 years ago, cannabis became legal in Canada. And I don't know about you, but for me, that kind of added to more of the confusion that I had.
You have no idea.
So, but I think it's also heightened the curiosity, especially amongst women,
Yes.
who are maybe hearing from their friends that it might be something worth exploring, or they might be hearing from other places that it's something that they are curious or interested about.
Absolutely. So a lot of people, especially in this day and age, they're more wanting to be proactive with their own health. They're not wanting to use pharmaceuticals. They're having some concerns with either their GPs, and just because, not that they don't have a good rapport with their physicians, but in regards to alternative medicines or naturopathic medicines or even acupuncture and all that type of stuff. And unfortunately, our physicians have not been well educated in those aspects, just based upon the schooling. No disregard to physicians by no means. So the question ends up coming with a lot of women, especially in certain age groups, is how they can incorporate this into their overall well-being and health, and just alternatively. So as opposed to using the Tylenol every day or the Advil to deal with the general aches and pains, or sleeping pills because they can't be sleeping, they want to look at something that is more of a natural aspect. Before legalization, it was very taboo. A lot of people were stuck thinking that it was either bad or it was good. There was kind of a gray area in that middle ground because of all the legalities around it and all that type of stuff. So it was very hush-hush. Once it became legal, it ended up actually bringing out a whole different group and a whole different demographic of people. Not that all of a sudden we had a huge income of a lot of people wanting to use marijuana, but had more questions, essentially.
Yeah.
So what we've also found is a lot of people, especially in the age group of about 45 to 65, is they kind of grew up hearing about it, or they had friends that did it, or some, women, they've got children who used it, and they saw that their children, didn't turn out as bad people, but it was very taboo to them on the way that they were brought up. Whereas now, being on the opposite side, with it being legal, is it kind of opened up more of a dialogue with these people, and where do I go? How do I talk to physicians? Where do I start? A lot of people don't even know the different delivery methods that can happen with marijuana. Like, you don't have to smoke it.
Very curious about that.
Yes, you do not have to smoke it. So legalization, yes, it was good in the way that it opened up doors and opened up more of a conversation, but it definitely made it more confusing in regards to the medicinal application versus the recreational application.
And you know, one area, and I know you have experience in this because you've worked with a lot of seniors in your career, is we now have women who are the chief health officer for their family, i.e. their aging parents.
Definitely.
So tell us about that.
So that has always been very interesting. So I have taught a course through Quantlin, and it is for elderly people, so 65 plus. The first time I did the class, there was maybe 10 people that showed up to the class, and I had a wide variety of women who, and it ended up actually majority being women, and I had women who either A, were curious in it, B, didn't want it for themselves but wanted to learn about it, or C, came in thinking that I didn't really necessarily know what I was talking about and there's no way that I could change their mind, but they were curious enough to sign up for the course. So day one, there was about 10 people. It was over 4 weeks every Saturday.
Wow.
Second class showed up, all of a sudden there was 15 people, ranging in different age groups and now different questions. Day 4, all of a sudden now I've got a class of 20 people, and slowly the men are trickling in, and slowly I've got, younger people trickling in thinking that this might be good for their moms. I've got elderly women bringing in their daughters going, this is something I think I want to try, come with me to this class. By the 4th class, which was the final class, I had 30 people in the class, varying on.
And this class is for seniors?
This class was for seniors, yes. So
cool.
It was very interesting, and at the end of it, I had probably about 5 people come up to me and say, I came into this class thinking, no, it's marijuana, it's not good, it's not for me. I'm not saying it's not for other people, but it's not for me. And they actually changed their perspective into, now I'm a little more curious, or now I feel comfortable talking to my doctor, or now I feel more comfortable talking to my family as using this as an alternative as opposed to the Tylenols or any of those types of things. So it was very interesting being able to talk to such a huge demographic and having people have all these interesting questions on all sides of the spectrum.
So what's the question that you get asked the most?
The most question I get is, am I going to feel high by taking this? The answer to that is yes. Of course, if you take too much of it, of course you're going to feel high. It's the same idea as if you were to do a bunch of shots of alcohol. Of course you're going to be really drunk, you're not going to be in control. However, if you sip on a glass of wine after dinner or through dinner, you're not going to feel that intoxication. And it's very similar when we educate people on how to use this as a medicine, is by using it slow and steady at their own pace, that no, you're not going to feel high. It's similar to as if a doctor gave you a prescription for, say, morphine. You've had a surgery and you also need to take a morphine. Of course you're going to have a bit of that altered effect as your body is trying to get used to the medication itself. But after a couple days, when you find out what works for you, that high feeling essentially is gone.
Right.
So
get informed and do what's best for you.
Absolutely. And again, it's about going slow. Just because, I mean, we're also used to seeing people sitting down and they'll smoke a whole joint. Well, that's not what you need. Myself included, I don't sit down and smoke a whole joint. For myself, it might just be 1 puff. It might be 2. I might not even choose to smoke. I may choose to use something else. So it's one of those slow, and the way that we educate people at my job is we would rather you not feel anything for at least 2 or 3 days until you slowly get used to it.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay, so we're going to walk through some of the tips to talk to your doctor. That is where we're going with this. But first I want to throw a few things at you because these are the most common topics in the Menopause Chicks community. Do you want to guess what the first one is?
It could be a wide variety of anything.
It's sleep.
Okay.
Okay, so sleep and cannabis. What should I know? What's on the menu?
So for sleeping, for people who have never used before, so someone like yourself
Yep.
or majority of my members, I would say probably about 60% of my members have either A, never used, or they did once or twice when they were in their teens,
Right.
had the infamous brownie story, and that was the end of it. So usually what we'll start people off with is it's a product called a tincture.
Okay.
So it's very similar to an echinacea. It's hemp oil in grapeseed oil as well as hemp seed oil. So what it is you just take 2 drops under your tongue, see how it goes. 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to feel anything. You're going to crawl into bed, wait for something to happen, and nothing will happen. The next day, we'll tell you, try 3 or 4 drops. See how that works for you. Now, the first time I did it, I did 2 drops, waited for the boogeyman, the infamous, okay, I'm gonna feel stoned. Nothing happened. It was very uneventful. The next night, I did 4 drops, and I found I actually got a pretty good sleep. It wasn't perfect, but it was definitely better than what I'd been having. The next night, I decided, I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna do 6 drops. So I did 6 drops. I had an amazing sleep. It was very relaxed. I didn't feel stoned. I did not feel like I had taken a sleeping pill when I woke up in the morning, nor did I feel like I had taken a NyQuil or any of that type of stuff. I was very lucid. I was very awake. If anything, though, I just felt well rested.
Wow.
So a lot of people, that is where we will start them with, is a tincture, just to see how your system is working. Is it absorbing the medicine? Because it does have to go through the bloodstream, therefore it has to go through your liver. Is your liver processing it properly? And some people, the tincture, no matter how much they use, it just doesn't seem to work for them. So then we may go on to something as a gummy or a lozenge or even honey. So you can put it into some tea at nighttime or some hot milk, or even just lick it off. Absolutely. So there's so many different alternatives, but usually that is where we will start people, is with a tincture, just to see how your body works. You don't have to feel high. I did have one lady who was about 75-ish. She misinterpreted when we said drops, and she ended up taking a full dropper full.
Oh dear.
She phoned us the next day, and the first question that we said to her is, "Oh my goodness, are you okay?" She's like, I feel okay, but let me tell you, that was probably the best sleep I've ever had. But again, there was no feeling stoned.
Oh, wow. Thanks for the tips on sleep. I'm learning so much tonight. Here's the next one.
Okay.
Libido.
Oh, goodness. So it's interesting. What we have actually found is when women actually start talking to us about libido, lack of, usually what we're finding is it's either because they've also got other issues that are also going on.
Right.
So body aches.
Yep.
If you're not sleeping,
You're not so related.
You're not going to want to. If your hormones are all over the place, you're having hot flashes, any of those types of things, that all is going to play into the libido. The only thing that we have found is the moment that people start taking products like the tincture or the honey or any of the medicinal products, is they find that their body overall starts to relax, so therefore the libido slowly comes back. It's not perfect, and sometimes it can be a hit or miss, so I can't speak for it one way or the other. I've even had men ask me the same question in regards to using cannabis, and for some it does, and for some it does not. I can't really say one way or the other, unfortunately, in that regard.
Yeah.
But like I said, is the moment that we do find is that people start relaxing and have, the body aches and all those types of stuff taken care of to a point, then all of a sudden their libido slowly comes back, or the feeling or the desires or any of those types of things.
Yeah, exactly. We had a doctor a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Balpawa, share with us about how for men it's typically an on-off switch, and for women it's like the cockpit of a 747, and all the to-do items have to be taken care of before you can actually get down to business.
Definitely. Definitely. I never thought about it in that regards. That is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, so things with tincture, we do find that it does take the body out of that fight or flight, which essentially can also, like you say, cause the tenseness, which also then causes the body to respond. We need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. So with the tincture, we find that that actually helps take some of the body out of that fight or flight. So again, really allowing you to relax. Whether or not the libido comes back with it is person dependent. It always depends.
Yeah, because we're like Rubik's Cubes, you know? We're
definitely,
all these things are so interrelated.
Exactly, and every woman is going to be different, of course, too.
Yeah. So the third most popular topic in the Menopause Chicks community has to do, it's a bundle. It's mood, it's anxiety, it's depression. What are your comments or thoughts on that?
So, majority of my members, it's interesting. So we actually have like a spreadsheet of where we enter in all of our members into, just so we can see their expiration dates and all that type of stuff. In there, what we have also done is we've been able to collectively collaborate, percentage-wise, how many of my members are dealing with certain issues. It's very interesting that I would say about 30 to 35% of my members are dealing with anxieties.
Right.
Anxieties can range from social anxieties. It can range from anxieties as kids, single parents. It can range wide variety of different things. Sometimes anxieties even from injuries, right? So even myself, I suffer from a lower back injury. And before I was able to help correct that by using, medical cannabis, is I did have anxiety. And I found that by taking the tincture, and I'm going to probably speak about this one the most, the tincture really helped me get rid of some of that anxieties. It just kind of took it from going from 1 to 100 to be able to actually have a proper thought process moving forward. So even in regards to all the hormone imbalances or, all the different things that can happen being socially, especially going through a pandemic right now, all these different things can collaborate and add on more and more. The tincture, from what we have noticed, I would say at least 70 to 75% of my members are all using tincture, and we actually think that more people should be using it. It's almost like the vitamin C of the world, because it really does help people to calm down, get out of that fight or flight, and it, again, because you don't have to worry about feeling stoned, is you can use it more consistently. It's also a little more discreet. So if you're having anxieties about using medicinal marijuana, be it in public or when you're out in a social gathering, there's no smell, there's no odor, and it's just in a little bottle, so it looks very similar to any type of an echinacea that you may get from a naturopath or health food store. So a lot of those things are kind of what we educate people on also, is how to, use this as a medicine, but not be ashamed of it, but we also understand there are social stigmas and all that type of stuff that can go along with it.
Sure, and questions. You're going to get social questions too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, so were you surprised by any of those three?
Not at all.
And are there any that we missed? Like in your day-to-day?
In my day-to-day, no.
Yeah. Sleep, sex, and stress.
Absolutely. And I mean, the only other one I would say is probably body aches.
Right.
That I would say is probably a majority, just because of the different age demographic. Again, being that I work mostly with people ranging from the ages of 50 to 75, there's more arthritis, body aches, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Definitely that can come along with that.
Yeah, and some more aches and pains from those of us that used to be able to do this for exercise, and now it affects us in a new way or in a different way.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about the modes of delivery, because you've mentioned tincture and you've mentioned smoking, which we know there's some, different schools of thought around that with the women in our community. What else do we have on the menu?
Yeah, so as I said, we've got a tincture. We've also, there's things such as lozenges, which are candies that you can just suck on. Again, doesn't mean you have to use the whole candy. You might find just sucking on it during a commercial break and then you put it down and that's all that you may require. There's things such as gummies, which are like your corner 7-Eleven store that you just can pop in and chew on those. They're rather delicious. There's also honey, so you can put that, like I said, into a tea. You could put it on bread. You could put it in oatmeal. The other options are lotions or creams that you can rub on your body for general aches and pains, arthritis, psoriasis. What else is there that we've got? We've also got brownies and cookies. There's coconut oil. So the nice thing with coconut oil is right now there's a huge influx of people wanting to be more in charge of their own baked goods and what they're putting into their body, be it gluten allergies or any of these types of things. So what's nice with the coconut oil is they can actually go home and make it themselves. And we have the ingredients on there. We have how to make it as a proper dosing, so you're not, again, going to feel stoned or any of that type of stuff. You can even just take the coconut oil right out and put it in your mouth. I'm not saying it's going to taste delicious, but some people like that. You could even put it into like a hot toddy, and so now you've actually taken your medicine and stuff like that way. And again, there is smoking, which some people are for, some people are not, and that is up to everybody. The way that we always tell people at ReLeaf is sometimes we may try all the other options and it doesn't work. So now you've come to a crossroad. So either A, you are just going to have to but manage your pain in this regard without smoking, and that's everybody's personal decision, or we can try smoking. And that essentially ends up being sometimes a crossroad that is up to the individual. That's not a choice for me to make. That is up to that person.
So it sounds like it's a very individual decision and maybe a little bit of trial and error.
Absolutely.
But not necessarily one is better absorbed than the other?
No.
Okay.
No, that again is all person dependent. So for myself, edibles do not work for me.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, my digestive tract doesn't do anything. If anything, if I just keep eating all the edibles, I will just get fat. The tincture, it works, but it doesn't necessarily deal with my lower back pain. It's great for the day-to-day. Like I said, from going from 0 to 100, it allows me to have a proper thought process and all that. But for me, what I find works best for my lower back injury is actually smoking. It seems to hit the pain. I don't feel stoned, but again, I'm just only having maybe a puff or two. That's it. It deals with my back pain. It allows me to clean my house or do whatever it is that I need to do, take my dog for a walk, and not have to take the Tylenols and the Advils, which for me actually aggravate and upset my stomach. So for me, that's what works. However, I've got lots of people who do not smoke and everything else seems to work for them.
I think you've underscored a really good point, be it this conversation or any other health conversation that we're having, is that sometimes I will hear from community members and they'll say, oh, I tried it and it didn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. But it might be that you didn't actually find the mode of delivery that's best for you and your body or your condition.
Definitely.
At this time.
Definitely. So even when it comes to, say, even different strains that you can smoke. Now, people think that there's always like 2 or 3 different types of marijuana, when actually there's so many I couldn't even begin to count. So even then, some people, they may try smoking and it doesn't work, or it caused them severe anxiety. There's such a wide variety. Myself, it was trial and error. It's not something that happens overnight. I always explain to people it's similar to an antibiotic. So you have an infection, you take the antibiotic, the bacteria or whatever's going on or the infection is not gone in a day.
Right.
It takes up to 2, 3, sometimes 4 days. Sometimes, in rare cases too, you may be prescribed an antibiotic that doesn't even work and you have to go back to your doctor to get something else. So it is trial and error, but we're always here to guide people, to counsel people and answer their questions, offer alternatives. So
I think that's a really good segue to one of the things I want to leave everyone with today, which is how do you talk to your doctor about this topic, and what are some tips that we can send everyone home with?
Absolutely. So the first thing we always tell people is do not go into your doctor's office and say, I want to try cannabis. That in itself just
It's not a drive-through.
No. And those words also can come across very abrupt, especially with your health physician, because he or she may not know anything about it, or is feared that because they don't know enough and they've heard all the bad stigma and stuff like that that can come along with using cannabis, is those are the first things we always tell people: do not come in with that. Instead, when you do phone your GP, ask, can we sit down and have a discussion about medical cannabis?
Yeah.
And then usually that opens a door, because now you've got two adults wanting to sit down and have a conversation without expectations one way or the other. The other thing is go in prepared. So with some information that you have read, be it both, pro or even against certain different delivery methods. If you actually go to the Health Canada website, there is actually a whole database there that actually has a bunch of different diagnoses, some blind tests. So if you're dealing with MS, or this is what they, found with using it, this your physician even has access to as well. Try not to end up in the recreational websites where they start talking about, oh, this is going to cure you. Marijuana is not a cure.
Good.
But go in, yes, very open-minded. The other thing I also tell people is your physician has every right to not agree with it. They've got every right to have their own questions. They've got every right to be concerned about your health. Ultimately, that's what they're there for. But if you go in with the tools, even just as simple as I've even told some members, is even if your physician will not sign your paperwork because he doesn't want you to smoke, and some physicians believe that might be the only delivery method, say, you know what, I'm just wanting to try some cream because I've got a lower backache. Even let's do a prescription, even for 2 or 3 months, and you know what, I will come in, or I will do a phone conference and talk with you about how this is working for me or how this is not working for me. And that ends up opening up a really good adult dialogue with your physician, so they can monitor you, which is ultimately what they care about.
Yeah.
And it also allows you to also have a little more control or more say as to what you're wishing to try as well.
I love that. And I think it's really important for us to emphasize that, while cannabis was legalized in 2018, many of the physicians and naturopaths that I've spoken to didn't receive the education that they were hoping for. So it's been put upon them to invest their time and their energy in getting up to speed.
Absolutely.
And so it's not that my doctor doesn't know anything, it's that they haven't been given the toolkit yet,
No.
at least. And the second thing that I've really found from working with physicians is they make decisions based on their experience in their patient panel. So if they have enough patients that are currently, that they're writing prescriptions for and that they're monitoring their health, it gives them more wisdom to advise and consult with you. Is that
definitely.
accurate?
In the beginning, when ReLeaf first opened, so we've been open for 6 years, in the beginning I had maybe 3, maybe 4 physicians that were willing to sign off on the forms. After that, there ended up being a couple more, and it was interesting because they would actually write on the prescription, go to ReLeaf, find out some information, come back and see me in 2 weeks. So then the patient would go back to the doctor. So then all of a sudden we noticed this, a few doctors, they kept referring different patients to us, but same thing, it always said, come back in 3 weeks, come back in 2 weeks. So
Because they want to know how you're doing.
they want to know how you're doing. But also I think, like you say, is it was for them to also collect their own data and actually see for themselves how this is working. And so now if they've got, say, 4 patients that are coming to me because they've got sleep issues, they may feel more comfortable to refer another patient and know that we may be able to help them. So it's been a really good, we've got now, I'd say probably about 30 to 35 physicians that are referring people to us. And again, it's opened up a very nice rapport because I've never once said this is a cure. I am not a doctor. That is completely up to them. So I have never pushed one way or the other. I let the physician do their work, and the physicians, therefore, they trust me in what I'm doing. So it's been a very nice hands-reach relationship, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and the medical community appreciates having advocates.
Absolutely.
In the community that they're serving. That's amazing. Okay, tell us exactly how it works. If I was interested in, is there paperwork and what do I need to know?
Yes. So Now, I can only speak for my facility itself. So we are a medical-only facility, which means that, yes, you do have to have the Health Canada practitioner forms filled out.
Okay.
So you can actually download it off of the Health Canada website. You can also get it off of even my website as well.
But don't expect your doctor to have it.
Do not expect your doctor to have it. And basically, in that paperwork, it outlines all the necessary information that needs to be filled out for you to gain access to be able to get this as a medicine. So it has to have your name, it has to have the physician's name, the physician's information, it has to have their number, so their physician's number. It also has to have an expiration date. So just like a prescription, it is only valid for 12 months. So if your doctor, say, signed it today and gave you 3 months, it would be 3 months from today's date that you would then have to go back to your physician and have him fill it out again. It also has to have his signature and a date that he has signed it. So that's how we can figure out how long it's valid for. So once that paperwork gets filled out, then what it would be is if you wish to join with ReLeaf or some of the other medical dispensaries, be it Tilray or Aurora or any of those places, then you can either fax it in and then they will guide you, or you can even give us a call. We'll do an intake over the phone, especially with COVID right now. And then from there, we can figure out what are your needs, what are your top 3 things that you're wanting to deal with. And then from there, we can say, okay, so collectively, based upon our data, we believe that this and this and this may be good for you. However, this may also be a good alternative. We teach people how to use the product. We give them a membership card.
That's amazing.
And the way that we also operate at ReLeaf is being purely medical, as there's no membership fee to join with us. The only thing that people pay for is their medicine.
Okay, that's amazing. So we're speaking in Vancouver, British Columbia today. I've heard of people shopping online. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, so there are some online places. I cannot speak to them specifically. They are leaning more on the recreational side. As far as what I am to collectively be told, I cannot speak for all dispensaries that they are all online or that they're medical or not. But you can purchase online, especially right now with COVID. A lot of people are choosing those alternatives, so that way they don't have to go into a facility. Also, in British Columbia, it is very difficult right now to find dispensaries, as with everything that happened where people were not applying for licenses and got shut down. It's very difficult. They're in just more different areas. So you may have to travel for an hour. Say you're living in Langley, British Columbia, you may have to drive to Vancouver, which is about an hour away. So some people are opting to order online. The cost is a little bit more pricey versus going into an actual dispensary. Again, I cannot speak for other provinces or in the States, but I do know from a couple people at a couple of my members who have chose to order online, they say it's pretty expensive.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. So let me tell you what you're going to be getting tomorrow. You're going to be getting a downloadable PDF that includes tips that you can take it on your smartphone or print it off and take it to your next medical appointment to have an informed conversation with your physician. And we're also going to be sending you a replay of our conversation with Tara and the Q&A, which will be coming up in a few minutes. And we're going to be sending a link to the documentary called Demystifying Cannabis, which is produced by the Cannalily. And we're actually in the studios of the Cannalily today, in case you're wondering where we are. So watch your email for that. And Tara, I think that the queue is filling up with some questions. So let's get, and are we still, do we have Facebook to check as well, or just Zoom?
It's just Zoom.
Just Zoom. Okay, great. So we'll go through these questions. Don't forget suppositories. We didn't talk about suppositories.
I completely forgot about the suppositories.
Yes, that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you, when I was talking about the top 3 concerns or health conditions that women have, what about PMS? And period pain. Does that come up for you?
It does. We're currently working with at least, I'd say, about 5 to 6 different women who are ranging with different issues, be it perimenopausal pain, fibroids, endometriosis, any of those women's issues, definitely. And they actually did find that the suppositories worked really well for them. And the theory behind it is the closer you can get the cannabis to the source of whatever the problem is, the more effective it will be. So a lot of people I know are, very taboo when it comes to using suppositories. That's something that they're just not comfortable with. However, if you can kind of break through that barrier, what's nice with suppositories is there is absolutely no high feeling whatsoever. You just insert it. You'll have to lay down, or, you could also use like a liner or something like that if you've got things to do. But you would want to keep it in for at least an hour and a half to be able to absorb into your bloodstream, and then go use the washroom. But what's nice is, like I said, is there is no high feeling from it, but it did alleviate these women, especially a lot of the cramping or a lot of the heavy period flows or any of that type of stuff that can definitely come along with it, for sure. And it's one of those things, I suffer of endometriosis, but I do not have the pain from it.
Okay.
And I personally found, I did try suppositories once, and for me, I didn't find it did anything for me. But again, this also leads back to everybody's different, and what works for one may not work for another.
Yeah, and I'd like to turn this conversation around too, in that it's another option that physicians have, because often they are stumped in how to treat or what options they can prescribe. What I call it, the tools in their toolkit, right, for their patients, that this is something that they can add to that list of options. And one of those popular topics that just popped up is vaginal dryness and suppositories. So we do have a question from one of our members about that.
Yeah, so again, I can only speak for myself now. I don't know what's available across Canada, but I do know in BC specifically, I have not been able to find any type of a vaginal suppository or some type of a vaginal lubricant for that unless it has scents in it. Now, the problem with that, I work with women, is the thing that we all found is the moment you add any type of a floral scent, well, now you may be leading into other issues.
Yeah, no sense.
So we haven't been able to find anywhere that did like a unscented or actually even had lab results in regards to that. If somebody has something and they want to shoot me a message,
opportunity.
Absolutely, because it's one of those things where, again, when you're dealing with especially women going like with all those issues, it has been something that we have talked about, but we have not been able to find.
Yeah.
So
good. Okay, now what about bath products?
We do not carry bath products, and it's purely because we ended up getting a couple samples, and I took one home. I personally found it did nothing for me. Two of my other girls, they took them home and they found it did nothing for them either. I've had other people make comments saying I went and I bought these bath bombs and nothing happened. So again, everybody is different. The only thing I could, in my mind, think is that the moment that you're putting in water, you may be diluting it. So you're not going to be getting the full medicinal application. And I also know that sometimes with some of the bath bombs I've seen is the dosing is very minuscule as well. So once you put it in water, it's diluting. And the other question that we also had was, are people feeling more relaxed with the bath bombs because you're in a bathtub. You're in a bath, you're having a moment to yourself, and it's one of those things. So I haven't been able to speak one way or the other in regards to bath products. We've had a lot more success with lotions, for sure.
Can you make your own?
Absolutely. So also we sell just the pure oil itself. So the oil is actually an extract that's from the plant. We've got two different types. So one that is just pure black, thick oil, and another one that's been refined. The pure black one, you can definitely make your own lotions from it. That's actually how we make our own lotions. You could absolutely make your own suppositories if you so wished. You would just have to find the molds and figure out proper dosings. You could even make your own bath bombs. You can make your own honey. And at the end of the day, it ends up actually being a little bit more of a cost recovery for the person that wishes to use it, because you can use it for a plethora of different items. Some people choose to just do it the easier, the quicker way of just purchasing the stuff from us, but absolutely.
Cool. You have a fan.
Oh.
Yeah, so you have a thank you here to Tara and her team for supporting this member with her fibromyalgia.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
so that's amazing. And just a testament to the good
that's
work
so
that you do.
nice.
And we also have a comment from Hello Again. Hello again. They're in California, and they do have a suppository for vaginal dryness.
Oh,
so,
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I want to ask a question because we do a lot of coaching with women about how to build their health team and to navigate.
Right.
So what do you do if your physician says no?
That's always, I always find that the most disheartening and the most frustrating part. My own physician, when I had confronted him, now this is going back 4 years ago when I had confronted him, he said, no, I don't do that, and rolled his chair from me. I've been seeing this man since I was 15 years old. So to be sitting in front of him at 39, he knows my father, who has been in the in the cannabis, community for many years. He's known me since I was 15. So I found it very disheartening for him to treat me that way. And then I think he saw my body language, because then he very quickly came back and said, well, you may have somebody else that can fill this out. I said, I'm sure I can find somebody. Fortunately, I was able to. Unfortunately, we do have many members who are not able to get the paperwork filled out. And it's very disheartening. It's very frustrating, not only for the potential member or the potential person wanting to try this, but just for them just to feel like at their wits' end. So there are a couple alternatives. The first thing we always tell people, try a local walk-in clinic. Try virtual health right now, which is a lot of these online doctors. And try even a doctor that's, either up in the Kootenays for whatever reason. They seem to be a little more open-minded. Even Toronto, we've heard, have been a little bit more open-minded. And I don't know if it's because they're kind of more in the hub areas of these, of using it, and they have just a little more information. I can't speak. But that's usually the first thing that we do tell people. There is also a couple facilities here in the Lower Mainland where you can go in and pay and see a private doctor. The problem with that, which also is another concern, is usually by the time that people are looking at using marijuana, they've already tried everything else. Chances are they're not working. Chances are they're on, some type of either disability, or they've been in car accidents or any of these types of things, that for them to now fork out this money to go and see a doctor is not necessarily an option. So the only thing that we can usually tell people is keep trying. Eventually there will be a doctor. Talk to your social network. Maybe you have a friend that is using it. Maybe you have a friend that sees a doctor who is open-minded. And it doesn't necessarily mean that even though you may go and see that doctor, the doctor still may say no. And that, like I said, that doctor has every right. But it's talking to your social network, finding out who may or who may not. We would love to give out some of that information sometimes, but out of respect for the physicians, as well as the confidentiality of the physicians, as well as the members, we cannot go down that road.
So to the person who asked, is there a directory? There is not.
There is not, no. However, I have been told if you go online and type in doctors that sign marijuana forms, apparently there is a list of doctors that do come up. I'm not too sure if they are in Canada or if they're in the States. I have not personally looked, but I was told a couple days ago about this.
So if you're watching this webinar tonight and you're trying to decide, do I self-prescribe or do I work with my physician, how do I actually even make that decision?
So, that's kind of a loaded question.
It is, I know, but
so the thing
you're smart.
So the thing that I have told people in the past is if you're concerned that this may not work for you and you do not want to go and speak to a doctor yet, is phone around to some of the local dispensaries. There's lots of recreational dispensaries. Go in there, talk to them about your concerns, talk to them about some of the issues that you're having, and really go in with questions of your own. The next question that I would tell anybody who wishes to try recreationally is if somebody in that dispensary is offering you a product, ask if they do lab testings. So make sure that the product is actually quality. Make sure it's not something is different with it, or it's up to a certain set standard, essentially. Give it a try that way. Phone around and ask other, physicians in the meantime if this is something that works. But usually that's what we tell people is try going to another dispensary, be it, legalized or recreational, and try something, but try something that is very minuscule. So something like a cream, see how that works for you. Try a tincture. A lot of places sell tinctures now. Try something like that. Or even try some type of like a whole plant, so like a CBD and THC, so you don't have to worry about any of that high feeling or any of that type of stuff. It can be a little costly, but sometimes people would rather try that way before they adventure out trying to find a physician.
Right. We're getting some good testimonials in here too. With my doctor's assistance, I was able to use cannabis and it helped me get off Ativan. So I think that's, somebody who's getting informed and choosing the journey that's right for them.
Absolutely.
Did you have a case study that you wanted to share with us?
I've had many case studies. I think the one that always sticks out the most to me is we had a woman who was using a whole bunch of different pharmaceuticals for pain. She was in a car accident. There was all these issues. And she went to her doctor and said, you know what, I would like to try cannabis. And the doctor said, no, I don't feel comfortable with that. She said, okay, you know what, let's try your way for the next 2 months. Okay, and if it does not work, then we will try my way. And the doctor kind of, okay. So out they went with the pharmaceuticals. She gave it the 2 months. She came back and she said, no, this doesn't work. And the doctor just looked at her, and you could only imagine the doctor knows what's coming. So she handed over the paperwork and said, we're trying my way now for 2 months. And the doctor said, okay. Sign the forms. This person now is walking without a cane.
Oh, wow.
They're not needing a walker. Quality of life, essentially, right? I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not perfect. But same thing. She's able to come off of sleeping pills, able to come off of Ativan, able to come off of, some of these other medications that she found were not necessarily beneficial for her personal health, her personal well-being. So it's been amazing, and we've never told people come off of your medications.
Right.
That's the first thing when they come and see us. Do not stop your medications. And that is something that you work with your physician while also using our products under the guidance and under the supervision of your physician. But it was amazing. So, and then even another elderly lady, she was able to come off of her blood pressure medication because her blood pressure medication had dropped. I had another woman who she couldn't afford a certain medication just due to certain financial situations. We got her using the honey, and she ended up not needing this medication, which was a nice little pocket saver for her as well. So, yeah, I mean, I could go on for days about all the different case studies, for sure.
Well, it's really empowering when you're able to build the health team that's right for you.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
So that's amazing. I'm so glad we called this session The Smart Woman's Guide to Cannabis, because you are so smart.
Yeah.
I don't see any more questions in the queue, but I would just love to wrap this up by asking you, do you have a favorite book or a favorite website?
Oh, goodness. I'm so busy with owning a business, I hate to say this, but I don't think I have read a book in probably about a year or two.
Anywhere you can send us to for the best information?
The best information would definitely be any of the Health Canada websites, for sure. Some of the WebMDs have also been pretty good, very kind of up and coming. That's pretty much, I mean, you can actually, Israel. Israel is actually right now on the cutting edge of a lot of different applications, a lot of information about THC and CBD and how that all works in the body. So even if you can find some type of an information thing based out of Israel, they've got a lot of information, and actually once every 2 or 3 years they actually hold a large conference in regards to medical cannabis and discuss what the findings are and case studies and all that type of stuff. So definitely, if that's something, check out.
Interesting. And I can only assume that the database of resources is only going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. You can end up in that, we call it the rabbit hole.
Well, let's hope that all the good resources will continue to grow. And speaking of that, just a reminder that tomorrow you will be receiving a downloadable PDF on the tips that Tara shared with us tonight that you can take to your doctor's appointment. And everyone is going to be getting a link to the documentary called Demystifying Cannabis, produced by the Cannalily. So we're very grateful for their support and for introducing us to Tara so that we could have this conversation tonight. I hope that you've gotten as much out of it as I have. So thank you very much for joining us. If there are any additional questions, you can always pop in to the Menopause Chicks community on Facebook. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for doing this. Thank you to the Cannalily for hosting us, and we'll see you soon.